very special episode of the Daily Combat Podcast. In this episode, we're joined by MMA legend Greg Klenjans. In this episode, Greg shares with us how it is that he became one of the most prominent, trusted and recognisable figures in MMA today. Enjoy.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hollywood Matt Connolly. Welcome to the Daily Combat Podcast. It is the double biceps. It's in the contract, a legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. Am I going to get it right this time? There we go. I got it right.
No, you got
I always lean to the wrong way because it's mirrored on the reflection that I can see, and I end up going out of frame. So this time I actually got it right. So welcome to the show. As long as we got that basis covered, that's all I'm happy about. I actually do use it in the edit. I just look for when is the double bicep. Okay, that's where the thing starts.
I stopped watching after that.
Right, yeah.
I tune out.
It's just a compilation of double biceps. I'm working on that.
That's when we lose all the ladies too.
Yeah, that's it.
But this is about MMA.
So the co-host, the co-founder, the co-wearer of clothes, co-breather of air.
Oh, here we go.
There we go. Co-breather of air in this very room. It is, in fact, the master of disaster, the king of sting, the count of Monte Cristo. It is, in fact, Thunderlips, the ultimate male, the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year Award. There it is there, the illustrious trophy. And it is, in fact, Dave Stockbridge. Stockbridge, welcome to your own show in your own studio, sir.
Oh, thank you very much for that very, very warm welcome. As always, Hollywood Matt Connolly. Every week. I don't know if the intros are getting better, but I'm enjoying them more and more. So now we do have a very special guest in the studio and a fascinating off-air discussion, and I'm sure we're going to jump straight into all of that. So, Greg, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure.
So Greg, you're actually, when you said you were over here training, I just assumed it would be for refereeing, and you've got all the referees together becoming better referees. But you were here on other reasons in Adelaide today.
Yeah, the secret other life.
Who would have known? So strength and conditioning coach, AFL.
No, not strength and conditioning.
No?
Just I got employed as a boxing coach, so an alternative trainer for the club, and it just morphed into other things.
So when the players go to the tribunal, they just blame you. Is that how it goes?
That guy again.
It was a really good cross. So how did that happen? Well, Greg, just last week was just drilling us, and
Like, damn, Greg.
Yeah. So most clubs have a combat instructor. Pre-season, we work pretty hard on it. There's jiu-jitsu and wrestling, which I'd run all that for them, and boxing continues all through the year as a cross train. And you're always working with the rehabbers. So rehabbers will got to be off legs or got to do something different. So that every day I've got something to do with it. I'm also involved in every drill, football drill.
Huh.
So I'm out on the ground.
Wow. And this is the Richmond Football Club.
Richmond Football Club, yeah.
Amazing. Wow. And so which was interesting that I didn't realise that all the teams in the AFL are playing here in Adelaide this weekend, which is incredible. I had no idea that was happening.
Yeah.
I don't follow football.
I'm such an MMA fan. You have no idea.
Right.
No, I'm still trying to work out why they're all playing in this weekend as well.
Yeah, right.
And it's just the one game here this weekend, or there's several games that you're at that Richmond?
No, just one. We're just playing.
All the teams are playing on the same ground at the same time.
And it just ends up a fight. That's where you come in.
Where I come in.
That's why the boxing is important.
But I'm not reffing, I'm just judging.
Judging and jumping in wherever you can.
Amazing.
So how is it that you began your is it a mixed martial arts journey or a boxing journey that melded into?
No, it's a martial arts journey that most people at my age are playing golf, swinging golf clubs, but it's just so boring. Like, why would you do that when you can still punch and kick someone? So I still really enjoy it. Like before I got on the plane to fly over this morning, I still had 2 PTs and a class to run and then jump. Like I still like it. And I'm not, I don't like getting hit in the head anymore. I actually never really did. I don't think many people really like getting punched or kicked in the head. And checking leg kicks hurts. It doesn't matter how long you do it, it still hurts. So, but I still train. I train as a student probably 3 times a week, and then the rest of it every day I'm doing something.
Wow.
Teaching or doing something.
Amazing.
To keep busy. That's why I'm skinny.
And when did this begin as a young man?
Yeah, as a young guy, like everyone in the suburbs back in the caveman days, we had to find something to do. So I got involved in Zendukai, which was the trend of the era.
Yeah.
That moved along. I found a guy who was the former Victorian state heavyweight amateur champion, just a boxer, and did a bit of work with him and just kind of hung around all that sort of stuff. Never mastered anything and still haven't, but haven't stopped. And then I moved to Adelaide. Oh, I'm trying to think when it was, the late 90s. Firstly to play football, and then left, went back, came back and bought a business here and thought, I've got to keep training. I've got to find somewhere to train. And the only thing that was open during the day, because I worked at nights, was Jim Fung's Wing Chun Academy. Do you remember this place?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
back in the day.
Yep.
So I went there every day to just train every day, and there was some really good guys that are still involved in combat sports today. I trained out of there, and one of the guys broke off and opened his own school called Street Defence Tactics.
Okay. Yep.
And I went across with him and started teaching classes for him, and a bunch of guys who have fought in MMA down under and stuff all followed and came out of that place there.
Oh.
So I was working out of there, and from there, one day, Brazilian guy walked in the door and said, "Do you do jiu-jitsu?" And I went, "Yes." At this stage, nobody did jiu-jitsu in Adelaide. Where do you do it? We just do it over here. So got on the mat with him. 3 months later, a mate of his turned up who was a black belt, the first black belt in South Australia. And in order for them to get their visas, one of the things that was going to help them was to have an Australian business partner. I said, I'm your man.
Yeah.
So that's when we started Brazilian Top Team Australia. So I was one of the founders with Fab and Bomba.
Wow.
And we found a shed down in Theberton and away we went. And from that, it kind of spawned out from there. And
I reckon I went to that shed in Theberton once.
Did you?
Yeah, only the once it hurt. I stopped.
I was on the mat last night and it still hurts.
Amazing.
I got thrown around by a big guy and then beaten up by a little girl. So, you know, it's nice. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
It still happens like that.
Yeah, that's the same experience. I did. It was wrestling with MMA. When for some reason, the instructor. Yeah, that's right. We'll fix it in post. We'll get another line. I'll put it in. But the instructor, because I was a little bit bigger. I was 120 kilos. He was using me as the demonstration for everything. It was like, "I'll come over here and this is how you throw somebody on their head, ladies and gentlemen." And I'll just do that again, and this is how. So if they're trying to get a rear naked choke and they've got their chin, you grab your thumb and you put it on their nose and you pull it across like that. I remember counting the next day. I was in the shower and I had 35 bruises. I was bruised everywhere.
Why would you ever want to go and play golf?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, that's right. The blood nose. Somebody accidentally headbutted me. They were in guard and they popped up quickly and hit me in the face. Oh my God. So yeah, all respect to people that do martial arts, especially for years. So incredible.
Yeah. Well, you look, every class or school you go into, you see, like I trained last night and the place was packed. But I was just sitting there thinking, how many of these guys are going to be here at my age?
Oh, yeah.
And I was going to, out of the, say, 50 that were on the mat, I would have said 4, maybe 4, you know.
Yeah.
Who's a lifer?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, it is very brutal, isn't it?
It's brutal, yeah. But for me, it's been fantastic. Martial arts has taken me around the world, so it's been great. And as I said, I've never mastered anything, you know.
Yeah.
I've got a few belts, but they just keep your pants up.
So you really you've really seen this whole metamorphosis of martial arts, basically from Karate Kid to where it is now, and the professionalism and the way that the sport's changed. Because for me, it all begins with Karate Kid.
Were you trying to think of a movie that was relevant now?
I was thinking, no, I've got no idea what. I was trying to think of a more relevant movie pre-Karate Kid.
Really?
I just couldn't come up with
there was none.
It all began there.
That's right. And everyone wanted one of those headbands. I remember wanting those headbands.
Yeah, and one of those little things.
I got a funny story about that because many, many years ago, my son had a birthday party and he wanted to do a martial arts party.
Oh.
I'm your man.
Yeah.
I'm not only your dad, I can help you here. So I sent all the invitations out to these kids, and these kids were, I don't know, maybe five years old, and brought them into the gym. And these parents walked in and saw padded walls and padded floors and just went, we're out of here. Great. They can do whatever they want. Go crazy. So I put my gi on, and as they walked in, I ordered a bunch of those Karate Kid headbands online, and every kid came in, got the headband.
Amazing. That would have made their day.
But I went
Dad of the year.
I went full Karate Kid. It was Crane, Tiger, and they had to do all this stuff. And I filled the boxing ring up with balloons, and before they could leave, they had to break every balloon. So it was just kids going crazy. And
Oh, that would have been amazing.
but the funniest thing about it was,
I want to go.
I want to be adopted.
no, the funniest thing was, two parents walked up to me and said, "Oh, hi, this is great," blah, blah, and didn't have a clue I'm the dad, and thought I was a child entertainer running a ninja
really?
party or something.
So
And wanted
taking
to take
bookings.
Thinking there's something in this.
Oh, right. It's a new business idea.
Maybe. I let it slip.
That's incredible. Oh, I bet your son was absolutely wrapped with that. That would have been incredible. It would have been the most popular kid in the class. Everyone, would you break the thing? Like, it would have been the talk of the next month at school. I mean, so amazing.
Yeah, I got some points for that one.
And did you ever imagine, like when you started off on this journey, probably as a young man, that you could bring together all of those facets of sport that you love, footy, martial arts, and bring it together and that just be your life? I mean, it's hard for a lot of professional MMA guys to make a living out of it. So, you know, from your perspective, to make it your life and to make it your living, it's quite a special thing.
Yeah, it is. I'm really lucky. But in saying that, you know, when I first started as an official, I worked for years and years and years, flying myself all over the country, doing shows everywhere for no money. I would pay for my airfare, I would pay for my accommodation, I'd pay for all my food, and I wouldn't get paid for it. So I just wanted to get better.
And is that still the course now as well? So if you want to get started, you kind of got to do those hard yards for a while.
You know what? I've ran a couple of courses for the Vic government in the last couple of years, and we've only done judges at this stage. And you get all these people put their hands up and go, "I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it." But
Officiating? Oh, no. I'm happy to watch.
It's a tough gig. It's
yeah.
a hard gig, and it's not highly rewarded. And we actually want people who are passionate about the sport, not somebody who wants to get their head on TV or say, "I'm a part of this."
It's not what it's about.
We've got
is it?
thousands of them. We actually need people who are passionate about the sport and understand it. And as a judge, it's a tough gig. You've got to understand a lot of little bits and pieces that fit this puzzle. You've got to understand what's going on. I teach, as you know, the class in Los Angeles with Herb. So I work with Herb at
Herb
referee
Dean.
school.
Amazing.
And we have about an 80% fail rate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
right.
everybody who comes in the judges, has to get on the mat. And those guys going like, "What do we have to get on the mat?" Now we're not looking for high level martial artists or instructors. We're looking for guys that understand what's going on or in a position. Like, how can you score that if you don't know the feeling from that?
Exactly, yeah.
Or
that's
how
right.
can you score that if you don't know that if he moves 2 millimeters, he's ripping your arm off?
That's
you
right.
might look like you're in a dominant position, but you're not.
Exactly.
So it's pretty tough to find those kind of people. There's plenty of MMA judges and everyone puts their hand up, but we need good ones
Yes.
because we're putting these kids' lives, dreams, futures, everything. It's in our hands here. Now, if we don't get it right, we can really muck,
And it's all
muck this
determined
kid
in
up.
split seconds as well, and that and often cases is your judgment as to whether or not that's enough or whether this is now safe.
As a
or-
referee,
Yeah.
yeah. But at this stage, I'm just talking about a judge. Now, they've got to get it right. Now, me personally, I don't necessarily agree with a 10-point must system.
I don't like it either.
It's not, but that's what we're paid to do. That's the system we've got. So be really, really good at it. Be diligent in learning all the rules, understanding it fully. Because at the end of every meeting, I don't think you guys have heard it, but I always pull a meeting together and I go through every fight.
Oh, right.
And if you've scored it, if you're on the wrong end of a split, I want to know what you saw. And I don't really care what you score the fight, but you need to intelligently debate to me how you arrived at that score under the current scoring criteria.
Amazing. I love
If
that.
you can do that,
Yeah.
I'm going to copy the argument. Okay, all right, I can probably see that.
Right. Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? And there's been
Really,
so
really
many
important.
bad calls.
So
But
many bad calls.
The 10-9 system, I mean, it came from boxing. It doesn't apply as well as it should for MMA. I don't have an alternative, unfortunately. I know
Do you have an alternative?
Look, I was lucky enough to work on ACA and ACB, the Russian show, and they have 5 judges.
Okay.
And we had a thing called the tiebreaker. So the resting ref would have a system. Myself and Herb were the refs on these shows, and we had a couple of other guys from Poland and a couple of guys from Russia would work on it. And if it ever got to a draw, which is pretty rare
Yeah.
on 5 judges, but it had happened. And then we had a system on how we scored a certain punch or a certain kick. And then we would just go bang. But I didn't really like that either because it came down to one guy.
Oh, yeah,
So 5 guys didn't get it right. You're putting it on me to make that decision.
Like a casting vote almost.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one.
It is.
So is it just a matter of any system's imperfect and it's just getting really good at the imperfect system that you've got to ensure that
That's
justice is found more often than
That's
not?
the only way I can see it. So do I like the 10-point must system? Not necessarily. There's lots of it I don't like, but I do everything I can to fully understand it and to judge it accordingly. And if I've done that, then I've done my job correctly. Now, if that cost you a fight, it cost you a fight under the current unified rules. That's what it is.
That's right.
Don't blame me for it. I did my job.
Yeah. Do you think we should see more 10-8 rounds?
I think we are seeing more 10-8 rounds. Yeah, there's plenty. We're starting to see them. But the trouble with 10-8s too is that you can there can be a hell of a first round, and you go, well, that's close to a 10-8.
Yeah.
And then the next two aren't as bad, but they might get a 10-8.
Right.
How'd you give that third round a 10-8? You didn't give the first one. Oh, well, at the time, it's too late.
Can't go back and change it. Hang on a minute. I'll just have that back for you.
Yeah. Well, there is some promotions that you have your score on the table for the whole fight, which I hate.
Yes.
Hand it in.
Yeah.
You've had your opportunity, done, reset, refocus, and do your job. Go back to work. That's
right.
how I like to see it.
Yeah. What do you think about the announcing of scores between rounds as an option?
I have no issues with it if everyone's doing their job correctly. I have no issues with it. I don't know if the fighters want to know that. I'm not sure if the corners want to know that. Because if I've heard plenty of corners say, we've got the first 2 rounds. Well, they clearly haven't got the first 2
right.
rounds.
They say that
but
no
they've
matter
got
what.
it inside their fighter, and they come. They're going to come out. We've got the first 2 rounds. We'll just knock him out. We're gonna knock him out and make this a highlight fight for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that the coaches necessarily want to hear it. I would think they want to have their own chat to their fighters.
I feel, it's a double-edged sword in some respects because if somebody is a very wrestling, smothering type fighter and they know that they're ahead and they've just got to cruise through 5 minutes and they'll win the fight, they're probably going to play it very safe. You're going to get a really boring third round. But in the other respect, it's when the other guy knows, hey, mate, like you are down, you're going to lose this fight. You've got to give it everything.
I think they know. I'm pretty sure the fighters know. I think he got me that round,
Yeah, that's right.
I think they know.
So how did this transformation happen for you as being just a fan of fighting to eventually officiating? And
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, first and foremost, I'm a fan. I'm just a fan of the sport. I like fighting.
Yeah.
I hate violence, but I love fighting.
Yeah.
I love it. So what had happened was the first ever MMA event was going to happen in Singapore called, do you remember the American King of the Cage?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was some big fighters come through. Rampage Jackson came. A lot of big name fighters came through King of the Cage. So this guy brought King of the Cage to Singapore. This is a guy who I had done some training seminars with. He was a student. I was a student, and we were doing some seminars, and I just got along really well with him. He was a Singaporean guy. He was I don't know what they called in Singapore, but SAS guy, like secret, whatever. Done the Navy SEAL course a few times. He was a badass, and he was a bit on that badass side of Singaporeans because it's a pretty organised place, Singapore. But this guy was, and I liked him. I got on with him really straight away. I went, this is my kind of guy. And he said, listen, I'm going to put on these events. He had a school up there called Fightworks Asia, and he said, why don't you come up? I'll get you to teach X amount of seminars while you're up here and come and watch the show. I went, yeah, okay, that'll covers all my fares. That'll be good. Get away for a week, go and have some fun in Singapore.
Yeah.
So I get there. He said, I'll have some boys pick you up at the airport. And I get there and these guys pick me up and take me to a clubhouse. And it's like they were called the War Pigs. It's like the Hells Angels of Singapore, which I didn't think existed. But this was so I went there. They were great. They were great guys, very accommodating. Anyway, he said the other guys from King of the Cage, what's his name? Terry Treblecock, who owned it, was flying in the next day, and a few other people. And the referee that they'd flown in was Herb Dean.
Nice.
So we all met and had dinner this night. We're talking a long time ago. I couldn't even tell you when, maybe 2006, 7 or something like that.
Yep.
And I got chatting and we went to the venue the next day and checked the cage and then Herb says to this guy, he says, so where are my officials? And he kind of went, Right, yeah. Okay.
Oh, right. Official.
Yeah. So Herb's he's having this chat with me. He said, we've been talking for the last couple of days. You seem to know a lot about the sport. You're the head judge tomorrow. He said,
okay.
I'm going to referee all the fights, but you're the head judge. And we're just going to go through some stuff now. So we went off for a few hours and went through
And you'd
everything.
never judged before?
I hadn't judged before. So, and then we got in
pressure.
a couple of other guys in, a couple of local Singaporean guys who are from some martial arts school or something like that. And Herb had given me all this homework to do and I'd done it all. And right, I'm going to pull this together and make this happen.
Yeah.
And there wasn't many fights. There was maybe 6 or 8 fights on the whole card. And Herb reffed them all. And we judged them all and we got them all right. And I did a report at the end of it as to why I thought and this, and Herb went, oh, this guy's. Anyway, long story short, Herb sits me down. He says, hey, listen, I'm about to put a course together in Los Angeles. I wouldn't mind you being my crash test dummy.
Wow.
He said, if you ever want to come over. I said, no, I'll come over, good.
Yeah.
So I shot over and
So at this point, you'd not competed at any high level as
No.
such, and how did your reputation get you as far as Singapore?
just as an instructor.
Right.
Yeah, just teaching.
Just teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
right.
teaching, yeah.
And what an unbelievable set of circumstances. You're
Well,
at the table with the
No,
with
the weird thing.
Bikers of Singapore and her dean, and you're the guy. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. The weird thing was, I was
2
up in
seconds
Singapore.
later, head judge, LA.
Well, the weird thing was, I was in Singapore.
Hang on, this is
The only
it
weird
gets
thing.
weirder.
I was in Singapore to teach street defense. Like, what if you're in a bad situation? How can you deal with it really quickly, really maim and hurt someone in the worst possible way, and get out of there?
Yeah. I'll take that wallet.
That doesn't happen in Singapore. There's rules in Singapore. You didn't chew gum in Singapore back then. Like, so I'm thinking, what am I teaching this for? Anyway, they were all over it. They paid a fortune for it, and they were all over it. They wanted to see that sort of stuff. And the other weird thing about it is that one of the sessions I taught was so the bikies have picked me up, gone to the clubhouse. The next day I'm teaching at the police club.
Oh,
So
this is what I taught them. This is the counter to
police
everything.
gym. Very
Amazing.
interesting. So I went over to Los Angeles. I spent a couple of days with Herb. We went through.
And sorry, is there any kind of like a formal like ISKA or anything like that that you're at this stage? So this is like
This is early days.
You and Herb making it up.
Making it up, winging it as we go along. Yeah.
If you blink at your opponent, you lose. No. Yeah,
So we know
didn't
it all
like your
out.
shorts. Yeah.
I've got a story about the short. I'll get to that one.
It's not Dennis Holman, was it?
No. But anyway, we put together this thing. He said, "This is great. I think you understand this sport." And there's no one doing this at this stage. There's really nothing. John McCarthy had a course that you could attend. And I get back to Australia after Herb signed it off and said, you need to get busy. You need to go and start getting involved in some shows. At this stage, there's no shows. There's none in South Australia. There's none in Victoria.
Wasn't regulated, I think. Here.
No. And they started one in...
It might have even been illegal.
I think it was.
it was.
And then
I did the first ever ones here in South Australia,
yeah.
At the showgrounds, they had a show called CFC, Cage Fighting Championships, which was in...
Queensland?
No, it was in Sydney and held at the Big Top at Luna Park.
Oh, okay.
And it was a great show. It was a fantastic show. So they had one show and I got back and I phoned the promoter and said, hey, listen, this is what I've done. I've just spent the time with Herb Dean. He certified me to be a judge. I'd like to get involved in your show. He said, we haven't got really money. We haven't got money. It's okay. I want to come up. I want to get better. He said, I'd love to have you on the show. And he gave me a number of a guy who refereed his first show, who kind of fell into it by accident as well. But just so happens, the same time that I was in LA working with Herb, he'd gone and done John McCarthy's course.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
It's where the lineages come together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which you guys know is Steve Percival.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So what is it? 18 years later, myself and Steve have travelled the world many times over and are still officiating.
Incredible.
So I hook up with Steve and I have this conversation with him. He says, well, listen, there's a show coming up next month. You seem to be talking like you know a lot more than my judge. Just come on up. So I went up and judged the first couple of shows and just got involved with him, and wherever there were shows, we'd go up and do the Southport Sharks and and there was some big names on those shows. Rob Whittaker was fighting on that show.
Yeah.
Soa Palale, Brian Ebersole, Anthony Parosh, Kim Robinson.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there was some really, really good and they brought guys out from the Ultimate Fighter, Caleb Starnes.
Yeah.
Hector was the champion in 2 divisions, Hector Lombard. It was
right.
big, but it was still kind of pretty underground then.
Yes.
Like it was pretty underground sort of stuff. But I loved it. But that's how I got started. And then any show that was on, I would just say, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing it, and I want to get involved. So I forced myself on people to become a good official. I wanted to become a good official. The thing that really ticked me over was I was cornering a fighter, a South Australian boy, who now runs Adelaide Jiu-Jitsu Academy.
Okay.
He was having an MMA fight up and there used to be a show called Brace for War. I don't know if you know Brace for War.
Haven't heard of that one, no.
Years and years ago. And flew up to Townsville Casino. I was his corner man, I was his trainer. And the referee got up and said, bup, 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 bup. And I just went there and went, no, that's not right. No, you've given some really bad instruction here. But rather than be one of those guys that stands up and yells, and I just went back and went, that's it. I'm not going to train any more fighters. I'm not going to coach any more fighters. I'm going to become a really good official because that's what we need.
Yeah.
That's where the sport's going. So that's what happened.
It's so exciting for me to hear all these things, these backgrounds. I was like, oh my God. First time I saw the UFC, I was like, every other sport, I'm like, out the way, I'm doing this now. Yeah, incredible. And to hear that you've been part of it for so long, and it's like, oh my God, I've probably seen you on there.
I did a show a few weeks ago and they announced some kid, I forget who he was, it was at a show called Salt in Torquay. It's a really good show. It's a new show. It's put on by a couple of coaches that are down in the regional area of Victoria. So they're fight fans and they think about the fighters, much like DFC. They put the fighters first, which is just fantastic. And anyway, the announcer reads out this kid's name and age and whatever else, and I'm thinking, shit, I was refereeing before you were born. I really have been around a long time.
Yeah.
And early on, were those promoters, were they boxing promoters or were they new to MMA and so just excited about it? Or gym owners?
A lot of them were gym owners
Yep.
that just wanted to get their fighters fights. The guy that was one of the promoters for CFC back in the original days was Luke Pizzuti, who fought on the show a couple of times himself. But just recently, he's got boys fighting on show. He's had guys on DFC. He's had guys on Path to Hex. He's had a couple of guys on Hex. He's actually got some, and he's just gone back to what he used to do, and he loves the sport. Like, you just love those guys that are still doing it all these years later. And they're helping some young kid get better.
And so how did the whole officiating thing become much more formal and how did you start to induct the new referees and the new judges, and how did that all start to take shape, and where does ISKA kind of fit into all of that?
So ISKA was set up here in Adelaide. This was from my time in Adelaide. So I spent 14 years, I think, here in Adelaide. And the first MMA Down Under was happening. In actual fact, I think there was one MMA show on before that, somewhere out, I can't even remember where it was or how long ago it was. But Greg Toyama contacted Shane at ISKA and said, this is what we're going to do. And I think they had 21 fights the first time. And there was 4 sets of rules. Now, at this stage, we had no pros. So there was no pro MMA. But we had...
So where are they getting their rule sets from? Is a little
so
bit like...
ISKA had some rule sets and they just adapted them. But they didn't have any referees that had ever done anything like this.
And who developed those the rule sets?
I think ISKA had rule sets from other countries or somewhere else, so they just brought them in and said, well, these are the ones we're going to do it under. So I think initially, if you were a C-class fighter, you had to wear shin pads, a helmet. If it went to the ground, you had to play jiu-jitsu.
No,
there was all these rules. It was,
Can't strike on the ground.
which, look, I'm all for it. If this is going to get kids involved, young kids involved, it's a great, safe way to get them involved. Call it whatever you call it, novice, call it C-class, call it whatever you want. Let's keep these kids safe and let them dip their toe in it and see if they want to take it further.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how did ISKA kind of get involved with you, or how did you get involved with them?
They just contacted me and said, "Hey, listen," and I already was involved with myself and Steve had MMA Federation Australia. And MMA Officials Australia. So we already.
So you'd formed some bodies amongst you so that you could essentially start training people and getting people prepared.
Yeah.
So you just took that on yourselves.
Just took it upon ourselves.
Wow.
Spoke to ministers. I remember here to get the cage approved here. I flew over. I was back in Melbourne by then. I flew over on a Monday night and we went out to. Did we go to Cardio Flex? I reckon we may have gone out there. And the minister and a few other fancy types come and sat beside us, and we did these mock fights, and I just explained everything as it went through, and just talked them through.
Demonstrated how it would look on the night.
This is what happens, and this is why we need to fight. We never use the word cage. This is why we need to use a safety enclosure, because it's very dangerous for this sport we're playing.
Yeah,
people are falling out and getting hurt. And I had to do the same thing.
It's more dangerous when they get out.
They had it a few times with some heavyweights in the early days, and they would bum roach each other and crash into, and the gates weren't like the proper pinned in, and they would burst open, and these guys would go flying out.
Well, the first ones we did at the showgrounds were all done in a ring.
Oh, okay, right.
All in a ring.
Like Pride, the old days of Pride.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Because the safety enclosure wasn't approved.
So you're having to educate judges, officials, induct all of those guys, educate elected officials in order just to be able to hold these events in the first place. So you're doing a lot of education, really, and just onboarding and getting people's head around this new sport. Because I'm just remembering back to those dark old days where it's a cockfighting for humans and all of this type of thing, and there was all of that type of talk that was around there. You were kind of you were sorting through all of that in order to just get an event to happen.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but like you guys, I was passionate about the sport. I wanted to see it advance, and I wanted to see it go places. And I thought after that meeting up in Townsville that I might be a better placed at doing this. I might be more of a benefit to the sport as this guy as opposed to this guy. So.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
but I always thought that I'll do this for a while, and then there'll be a bunch of new guys who will come along, and great, I'll sit back and have a beer and watch people punch the shit out of each other. But not too many more have come along, and that's a lie. They've come along, but they're just not prepared to put in the time, the energy, the effort to make the sport better. They've got other agendas, and I'm kind of like, maybe you're not the right guy for this job. Like that's not how it works out.
And so ISKA were already officiating in different combat sports around the world at that point in time, and so they've kind of married in with what you're doing at the.
Well, I think ISKA actually sanctioned Bellator in America at the time, so they had some big shows on the go anyway. They had plenty of places to go. So we co-sanction the events here in South Australia.
Yep.
The first two UFCs here, the organisation that myself and Steve have, we sanction those events.
You sanctioned that, it wasn't ISKA?
No.
Right.
So it was, you were like the athletic commission in a way.
And so how does that happen where they reach out to you guys just knowing that you're the guys on the ground?
Yeah. Right. And then we can supply officials that they need to have. We also ran just an inspector's course on the night before as to what was needed. And there was a young girl that turned up who had said she'd been training with a girl that was fighting. We said, look, we're going to have to take you off this show. You can't have that affiliation.
Conflict of interest, right.
So we just did what was, we just, basically if it says it in the rules, we just try to stick the rules best we can. That's what we have to do. That's our job, Whether we, as I said before, necessarily agree with some of those rules or not, they're the rules. That's what we're paid to do. So go to work, do your job.
That's right. Don't
get caught up in it. Just do your job. It's not about us. We just got to try. If nobody notices us, we've done a great job.
And did you ever imagine at some point that it would that the sport would explode in the way that it did? Did you always have that feeling? Or
look, I thought it was, but not for 1 minute did I ever think that I would be officiating some of the biggest shows in the world. I just like the sport.
Yeah.
And today, I'm
excited to hear all this.
I mean, I've never done a main event of the UFC. I've done a couple of main events, co-main events. I did one I did the one in the Philippines, the one show they did in the Philippines, and I did one of the co-main events in Korea. But in saying that, whether it's that show or a stadium in Russia, or it's down at Torquay doing an amateur kid in the shed, It's just the door shut and it's red versus blue, and just show me a good fight. I've got a job to do. I don't really care who it is or what's going on. Yeah, so it's the same for me. I don't care where it is. The pay's slightly different, but I'm probably still trying to catch up from what I spent initially to get there. So probably
is there any degree of performance anxiety or nerves for those big shows though? When there's a lot of eyeballs on you and everybody's judgmental themselves and has a
Look, there is for one show, and the so-called biggest show in the world, or the so-called self-proclaimed biggest show in the world. They you get some nerves there because it's not necessarily all about the fighters, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm really blessed that I've ref for different shows all over the world. And I don't necessarily think the best fighters in the world fight in the UFC. Actually, I know they don't, because I've been lucky enough to do shows in Russia and Eastern Europe and all over China. And so my job in there is just to do my job. I just go in there and do my job, stick to the rules. Whereas you could be, I've had occasions in the ring, and I understand in the cage with the UFC and the cameraman, we go, ref, step right. And I'm like, I'm standing here because if something goes down here, I want to be in the best position possible. They're like, get out of the way, we need the money shot.
It's the entertainment side as opposed to
they've got to sell their show. And look, I get what they're doing. They're in the entertainment business. I get that they need guys that are going to sell fights for them, but I'm not that guy. I'm just the guy that's trying to enforce the rules and do my best job. That's all I'm trying to do, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And you're there for the safety. I'm putting their safety first regardless as to...
That's the first thing you speak about in our courses is the fighter safety is paramount. That is the first and foremost of our jobs, to look after fighters.
Absolutely.
And what's the state of officiating in Australia now and the standard compared to the rest of the world? How's all that travelling in the modern world?
It's really interesting, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say there's some guys now who judged on the last UFC in Perth. Probably haven't judged the show since the last UFC.
Oh, God.
Like, for whatever reason, no. Get involved. Go and do every little local show you can. Keep current. Look at fights. Get better.
That's right.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, so that's my concern, is that I'd like to. We have it here in Victoria. Well, I have it in Victoria, that the guys that do my course, and Steve comes down and helps me, and we'll have a logbook on what they've done. If they're not active, then they're going to have to re-educate again, because things change. The sport evolves. You've got to move forward.
Yeah,
if you haven't done anything for a while, don't turn up and say, I'm a judge, I'm a qualified judge. If you haven't done anything for 2 years, you're not a qualified judge. You're starting again.
That's right.
So that's how I play it.
I love the fact that you went and off your own back, you've gone, this is something I'm interested in, and the officiating side is where I'm going to put my focus. And rather than sort of relying on people to pay you to do it, you're like, screw that. I'm going to go there. I'll pay myself to get there and be part of it, because I love the sport and I want to see it get better. So if anybody is in a position where they want to make something happen like that, it's like, if they're looking at the position that you're in at the moment, they go, that's something I'd just love to walk into. It's like, no, you don't realize how many years of work and sacrifice and money and time and travel that you put in for free at your own expense to get to this position. So, yeah, it's incredible.
You would not believe some of the emails I've had over the years. Like a UFC's coming to town. Hey, listen, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. What are the chances you could help me get a job as a ref? How do I answer that question? What have you been doing for the last 10 years?
Right.
Yeah, you've been turning up these little shows. You've been helping build the cage. Over the years, we built cages. We would clean up rubbish after the show. You'd just do whatever you had to do to make a successful show. The people come back so that we can have more and more shows.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's all that grassroots level and the support. And then it's like, well, maybe you're at UFC one weekend, the next weekend you're at the local show, but it's like you're going to give it as much effort and energy. So
it doesn't... my job doesn't change. They close that door. But it's before that. I mean, you've been there. I have rules meetings. I have to go and speak to all the fighters. You've got other things you have to do before. We'll go and do a cage inspector. We'll get under the cage and have a look at everything. We'll check everyone's fingernails. We'll do everything we have to do. Most people just want to get their name announced by Bruce Buffer.
Yeah.
How do I get that job? That's pretty easy. I don't get punched in the face and I get on TV in the UFC.
So what's the pathway for anybody out there that might be considering being an official or might have seen that and thought, you know what, that's how I can contribute to the sport?
Yeah, and I think that's great. Then they've got to do exactly what I did, I think. Find out what local shows are on. Phone the promoter, say, hey, listen, I'd like to get involved. He would then, or they would then put you onto the officials. And you may have to shadow judge for 12 months and get paid nothing for it. And you may have to do all the little crappy jobs. You might have to walk fighters out to the cage and tell them they can't drink this or can't eat that, or, you've got to do all that sort of stuff. That's what you got to do. You got to understand the sport.
Yeah, that's right. And then, so you're running courses in Melbourne as well? In
Melbourne, yeah. We've keep toying with trying to do one here in South Australia, and it keeps changing. Dates keep changing, and people keep dropping in and dropping out. Still doing the ones in Los Angeles. We've got one in November coming up for the first time since COVID, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah.
Have done them in China, done 2 in China.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been active with officiating.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'd love your frequent flyer points.
Well, sadly,
you can buy a plane with
well, we got that gig, myself and Steve, with the WLF, which is a Chinese organisation, and that lasted 5 years. So we did a show a month for 5 years.
Right.
Every 4 weeks we get in a plane and go somewhere to China and do the show. So my frequent flyers were good. But then COVID hit, and then I kept getting this email from China Southern saying, you got to use your points, you got to go somewhere. I'm like, there's no planes in the sky. China's shut down. I can't do anything. I think now I'm done. I think there's nothing left. And they're blaming me for not flying with it. And their planes didn't go anywhere. You
trade him in for the gift shop.
I tried to do that.
They wouldn't let you.
No. There was nothing in it.
They wrapped around it.
What does your calendar look like? So do you know how far in advance do you know what you're doing?
Well, there's 2 parts of that. There's the BC, of course, before COVID, which I did have it fairly well planned.
Yeah.
And since then, obviously, all the international stuff's stopped. And my biggest, the biggest ones I worked with was the WLF, which was China, every month. And then I would do an ACA, which would become ACA, the Russians, in between those shows. So generally 2 a month. But I can't see the Russians or the Chinese offering an Aussie a job anytime soon.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably done for a while, which is fine, which means I've really dived deep into the local amateur and pro scene, and I'm loving it.
And so that was your COVID response, was to just get back into the grassroots and try and support the sport again.
Yeah, which I did anyway. If I was in town, I would do every show that was available. It didn't matter to me. I would just do shows. And I also thought that you owe it to the fighters, even if you don't like the promoter or you're not getting paid much money, these kids need to have someone who's going to look after them and someone who's going to get the right result for that fight. So I felt I owed that to these kids anyway.
But some of your favourite moments refereeing, like, is there anything that stands out where you're like, oh, this was awesome, this was some of the best things that has ever happened to you?
Oh, there's a heaps of funny stories. We were having a chat before when we were before the show, and it was when Brian Ebersol, and we did the first ever. It was called Van Diemen's Caged Mayhem. It was at the Derwent Entertainment Centre in Tasmania. And I flew over, and we were picked up by a bunch of gentlemen that rode motorbikes. And
again,
they said,
same guys from Singapore.
Just hang out for a minute. We've got a special guest who's going to give out the trophies. And I went, no worries, I'll just sit in the cab and wait. And then Mick Gatto comes walking out.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go.
G'day, Mick. No worries. And that was it. That was a conversation with me. And he seemed nice enough and invited me to the after party at some clubhouse somewhere, which I thought, no, I'll just have a good night's slice of pizza and go to bed after the show. But that show was great because I'd known Brian Ebersol from doing the CFCs and numerous shows around the country for years. And I don't know if you guys have met Brian, but he's a fantastic guy.
He seems I haven't met him in person, but every interview I've seen with him, he seems very genuine, very humble, very down to earth.
Yeah, and he's probably had 100 fights.
Yeah.
And fought in all weight divisions and didn't care who, when, where, but a lovely guy. Brian was on this card. I can't think if he was in the main event or not. Anyway, I get up in the morning and I'm one of those, the weird guys, even in the UFC or any fight shows I go into this new town, I've got to find something to do. I'm just not going to come here for fights. I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to find something about this city. Happened that weekend that Mona, the art gallery, opened in Hobart that weekend, and it was free to everyone initially. So I get up in the morning, I've walked out of the hotel, and Brian says, what are you doing? So I'm getting on this boat. There's this art gallery that's opened, underground art gallery. It's up on and he just went, I'm coming with you.
Yeah.
So he jumps on the boat and we go to this thing. And I don't know, have you guys been to Mona?
I don't know.
It's incredible. It's I've been there 3 times since. This was the weekend it opened. So there's hardly anyone in there, and there's some of the most incredible art from all over the world. This place is incredible. And I'm blown away by it. And Brian's just couldn't believe what he was seeing in this arcade. He wasn't a really arty type of guy, but he just wanted an adventure. And he was just sitting back and he was just pondering the whole way back. Anyway, we get back. It's fight night that night. Brian's taken by the art. He decides to wrap himself in a pink sarong, buys a dozen red roses and walks out instead of fight music like everyone else was walking out to 15, 18 years ago, he's just handing people flowers and then proceeds to go out there, slam some guy and finishes the fight in a minute and walks off.
It's amazing.
But the up thing to that, the funny thing about that was that I think we spoke 2 weeks later, or was not even
that. Was the UFC with 110
2
in
weeks
Sydney?
later, 110, Sydney was coming and Brian gets a call as a late call-up to fight Chris Lytle. And Chris Lytle was a killer.
Oh, God, yeah.
He was a killer.
Lights out Lytle, yeah.
Yeah, but Brian took it to him and
He did. It did
mucked up the whole party and
It did.
finished, yeah.
That's right. And then he had a successful career in the UFC as well from there.
He must have had, I don't know, did he have 8 or 10 fights?
Yeah, and it was interesting because he was talking about his path with the UFC and he said, look, I'm not going for the title. That's not my path. And he goes, but there's a lot of legends, a lot of big names in this division that he was fighting in, and it's like, those are the fights I want. And you saw him take it to so many big names, and he did amazing. He did such a great job in the
Always
UFC.
entertaining.
Yes, and the hero we had. I don't know if you know, he used to shave his chest hair into an arrow pointing at his face.
Pointing to his chin.
That's right,
Pointing up to his chin.
because he said that his opponents would always miss his head, and he's like, I'm going to give him an arrow to say, this is where my face is. Try to hit it.
He's a funny guy. He's a great fighter, but he's a fantastic coach.
Right.
Yeah, I've had him there for a couple of seminars, and he's a great coach.
He's
still involved in the sport. I think he's working at King's.
Gary Neugebauer.
Elvis Sinisek's gym.
Right.
He works for Elvis now.
Oh, with Elvis. Yeah, nice. Yeah, Elvis Sinisek was one of the first Australians to fight in the UFC.
The first, I think.
Yeah, he fought Forrest Griffin. He fought some of the big names, Tito Ortiz.
Jeremy Horn.
It's true, yeah. Well, double armbar. That was the first double armbar in the UFC, and it was Elvis Sinisek from Australia, the king of rock and rumble.
King of rock and rumble, Elvis, yeah. And I think he actually commentated a few of them after that.
I think so, yeah. Great guy.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. You see him around at shows. He takes photos now. Takes photos at fight shows. And I think, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's running for local government in his area.
Okay.
Or he's involved in it, yeah. He's an interesting guy, Elvis.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was showing Dave some of the UFC entrances that they used to do, those real big ramp entrances with the fireworks and everything like that. That Tito Ortiz one that I showed you, he was fighting Elvis Sinisek on that.
Oh, yeah, right.
So,
yeah.
And Elvis Sinisek had beaten Jeremy Horn, who is a veteran, like he's had 180 fights or something.
Gumby.
Yes, that's right.
That was his fight name?
That's
Gumby.
right, Gumby, yeah. Because he looked really soft and didn't look like a fighter at all. And he
Hunched
fought
shoulders,
everyone in the
walk
world.
out. Yeah.
That's right. It was a double armbar that Elvis had beaten him with, which was incredible. It's just it's a move that you'd never really see, and I don't think we've ever seen one since, actually. But so he got the opportunity to fight Tito Ortiz after that, which was probably not a great thing at that time because Tito was really high up there. And but I remember the intro that they did for Elvis. So the Tito one was after this. So Elvis, the king of rock and rumble, so they had a big throne, and he was sitting on this throne, pondering his fireworks going off behind him. It was amazing. And then he came in for his entrance, and then Tito came in, and it was like, it's exciting. And then Tito proceeded to smash him, but he was doing that back then.
Where's our Tito? Oh,
yeah,
we've retired our Tito.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, he was hanging on our trophy for a while.
He hung on there for ages. He was choking out.
He was.
Trophy man.
We have Tito is my favorite fighter. So it was. That's why I know that fight so well, because I'd seen it a bunch of times.
A bunch of times?
A lot of times.
Thousands.
I don't know Tito, but I was lucky enough in LA once to do a show at the Hollywood Park Casino. Now, the Hollywood Park Casino sounds fancy, but it's in Inglewood. I don't know if you know where Inglewood is. Inglewood's Compton. It's the tough side of town.
Don't bring your
Los
wallet.
Angeles. Anyway, this it was a racetrack and a casino, and it was broken down. It was disrepaired. It was almost done, and they had this fight in there. I can't think of the name of the show, but it was fantastic. It was everything about LA you could imagine. So we rock up to officiate this show, and there's some old, I think it was called West Side or some sort of rapper playing in between bouts, and the doctor, I got introduced to the doctor, and he had fake hair, fake lips, rings on every finger, and had a gun down here. And but the greatest thing that happened to me on this show, I've got the poster at home, it's fantastic, was that Tito had a couple of guys fighting.
Right.
So he sat cage side talking to his corners, and he brought his wife up, who was sitting next to me as I was judging, and it was Jenna. So I was sitting right beside her. I kind of just
brushed a little
made
bit.
sure I brushed it a little bit.
Amazing. So there you go. Yeah, it was.
The perks of being an MMA ref.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And over the years, have you set eyes on someone and kind of known pretty much straight away they're going to be a superstar?
There was a kid in WLF. He's a kid. So there's a group over there called, what were they called now? I can't even think of the name of the fight team. Anyway, there's a fellow over there who would get a lot of the kids from the orphanages, no parents, and he formed this school over there, this MMA school, and there'd be 100, 150 kids in this school. Now, if you couldn't fight, you had to clean the gym, you had to cook the food, you had to do all this stuff. So he had schooling. Half the people hated him.
Like an ashram.
Yeah,
with MMA involved.
But the option to being a homeless kid in China, to be in this place, you got an education, you got fed, you got somewhere to sleep, but you had to fight. And they had this young kid, Bang something, I forget his name, and I thought he was going to be the next big thing to come out of China, but he was just knocking people out weekly, or monthly, every time we were over there. This kid was a killer. But he never took the step that a lot of the other Chinese fighters took. He was a mountain kid, so more of a Tibetan kid.
Okay.
We did end up doing 3 shows up in Tibet.
Oh, wow.
Which was just unbelievable.
Right.
First time we went up there in a bus, took, 9 or 10 hours to get up to Aba. And I was up there on my own. Steve didn't come to this show. And
He's like, you're going to Tibet. You're going on your own, mate.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. I loved it. This show was on, sold out. 10,000 people at a soccer pitch outdoors, and I'm standing in the cage just looking around, and there's mountains of snow, and I was just went, this is the greatest thing of all time. Anyway,
How did I get here?
they had a local. They wanted to give the local fighters a fight, so they had everything set up that night, the night before, and said, "Would you mind refereeing these local kids?" There was 8 fights, and so the locals could come. Some that maybe they couldn't afford the ticket price or whatever was going to happen. So I go and start refereeing this fight, and something happens. Throughout the fight, I missed the whole thing. I'm in there, but apparently there's an earthquake,
Oh, God.
and we're all evacuated off the mountain, and the show never went ahead the next night.
No.
But I was lucky enough to do the one the night before,
Right.
which was great. But all these guys, they'd flown in from Japan, Korea, everyone else to fight on this big show the next night. We were all evacuated off the mountain, and it was kind of frightening because they put it on buses, and the army were driving us through these tunnels, and I'm thinking, do I really want to be in a tunnel like all those earthquakes going on?
In the middle of...
No one's going to know. But lucky enough to go and do 2 other shows. One of the other shows was an outdoor one on this range in paddocks, and they had, you would have seen the Tibetan horsemen that run around shooting arrows, and the change rooms with those tents, and it was incredible.
It was like that.
Oh, it was amazing. And these tribesmen and herdsmen and that come and sat around. It was just amazing. And I'm out in this field in Tibet. It was really high, that one up, so the altitude was quite scary. And I got there and was a bit wobbly, as everyone was, and they took me to this restaurant or cafe or whatever it was, where they just shaved off raw yak meat. And it neutralises your blood in some way to get that level. So I'm sitting there dipping this raw yak meat in chili and just... like experiences like that. You kind of go, I get all this because I'm a ref. Unbelievable.
Amazing. It's amazing. Oh, you said you had a story about somebody's shorts.
Now. The shorts. That's not a great story, but this is
But it is a short story.
it is a short story. So I'm over in China for the first ever Tough House China.
Okay.
So they had an Ultimate Fighter in China.
Yes.
Possibly the most boring fights you could ever witness.
I didn't watch that season.
I don't think anyone did. So we had Mark Collett from the UK, who's a UFC judge. I'm trying to think who the other guys were on it. Anyway, there's a few guys from around the world. And we're in China for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we're filming every 2 days, but we're doing one fight every 2 days.
Right, yeah.
The rest of the time they're filming in the house and then they get this fight together. And we do this fight and it was just, oh God, we had to stand there in our suits and bow and do everything that you had to do to look Chinese and do these fights. But we'd get back to the hotel and have a beer and go, listen, we're going to devise a whole new scoring system here because this is boring. So if they come out in really tight shorts, they automatically lose a point. if they've got X amount of tattoos, they might get half a point. So we're just trying to, if their hair's really good, body tones. If they thank God, they lose straight away because they're cheating. They've got God on their side. So we had to wipe. So we just had this system. But that was our shorts thing. And a lot of times we'd go on the shorts. Well, I took it down to the shorts. So we would do our job as we were supposed to do our job.
Right.
And we would find the right winner for the fight. And then we would go back to the hotel that night and have a beer and go, okay, how'd you score this one? Well, did you see the shorts they got? So that's how we would amuse ourselves in the
And would the results have changed that much against the two, or was it pretty consistent?
Most of the time. Most of the time.
The results would have flipped. Careers could have been changed forever.
There's two specific shorts moments that I remember from the UFC. One is Dennis Hallman, who came out
and the baby
with the Speedo. He came out in the Speedo.
Yeah.
And his unfortunately junk got shown on camera.
But Brian got a bonus for getting him off national television as quickly as possible.
That's right. And then they changed the rules and that you can't wear those sort of shorts. Well, shorts. It was a Speedo.
He could actually fight. Dennis Holman could fight. He'd been around a long time.
Absolutely.
He was a seasoned fighter.
Yeah, he was incredible. He was such a good fighter. But I don't know why the hell he wore a Speedo. And he was I don't know if he lost a bet or something.
But that was in the time when you could have your own sponsors still.
That's right.
So maybe he got paid a lot more than he got paid to fight to wear those stupid things on national television.
Yeah, that's right. The other short story is there was a Canadian fighter. I can't remember his name off the top of me. He was one of the Ultimate Fighter guys, but he had forgotten his shorts and he got there and then went to get dressed to go out to the fight and gone, I haven't got any shorts. And his team's gone to the Vegas Strip and just bought a pair. And he fought and the tag was still on it.
Under your point system, would that have been extra points or a point off?
Well, I reckon you've got to get a point for walking in with a tag on, don't you?
Dana White said it was amateur hour there, right?
What were the inspectors doing? Like that's
well, it might have been inside to start with, and then over the fight.
Well, I did do a fight. Whether I checked him down but it was when Benson had
the toothpick.
Yeah. Might have been in Korea because he's half Korean. Yeah, he was half Korean, half.
Did he have it in his mouth?
American. He had it in his mouth.
And you went
And he's got this. No. He opens his mouth. I couldn't see a toothpick, but he had it in there.
Yeah, right.
He knew how to hide his toothpick.
Absolutely. Because he would always bring it out at the very end of the fight. And everyone's like, oh, he's been fighting with the toothpick in the whole night. So yeah.
On that show, that Korean card was incredible. They're bloodthirsty. The Koreans.
Oh yeah.
They are there like in Australia, but they're louder and drink more beer. and I had this fight. I was refereeing this fight, and it was a Colombian guy fighting a Chinese guy. So no English between the two of them, with an Aussie who doesn't really speak English. Refereeing it, and then a Korean doctor.
Oh.
I'd probably have to bring it up, but it'd be somewhere there. Anyway, he gets picked up.
Sounds like the beginning of a joke.
Yeah, that's right. They walk into a cage.
Only one man walked out. How many men were there?
And the Colombian guy picks up this Chinese guy and throws him down, and I see posts his hand out, and I see his arm just go in a weird one. I think that's broken. That's no good. That's no good. And I stopped the fight.
Yeah.
And I just could hear the commentators, I don't know if it was Joe or who it was, just going, what's the referee doing? And all I'm going is, please have a broken arm, please have a broken arm. I'm going to get the sack here, please have a broken arm. And I call in the doctor and I said, I think he's broken his arm. And the doctor just grabs it and didn't have a clue what I was saying. Gives it this one and this guy screams. I'm like, yeah, he's got a broken arm.
If he did before, he does now.
We're like, no, right there.
But I mean, that's your job. Like, if you get that wrong,
Yes.
you potentially wreck this fight and everything.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, Herb Dean had that happen with Frank Mir and Tim Sylvia when he broke Tim Sylvia's arm, and nobody had picked up what had happened. It's a forearm bone, which
the doctor waved it off. The doctor waved the fight on, and said, no, it's fine. And he said, no.
Sylvia's going, I'm fine. His arm's literally broken.
Yeah.
But yeah, because the same thing, the commentators were, well, I don't know why he stopped it there. But then when they got the replay and you could see like the two pop, and it's like, oh, he was right. I think that was one of the really standout moments of Herb's career that might have like actually got him that attention of like, what a great call that was. And he really, really picked up on that. So, yeah.
Look, in saying that, Herb is a great ref. Like he's not only a great mate of mine, but I think he's a great ref. But he's still going to have a week where someone goes, you are the worst referee. And I get it all the time too. I think I've refed, last count, it was over 3,000 fights. Wow. So that's probably more than anyone in the country.
Yeah.
I still get emails from coaches saying you are terrible, you don't understand the rules.
Don't know what you're doing.
I've only been doing it for 17 years. I've worked all around the world. I'm kind of the best you got at the moment. I thought, I'm all you've got at the moment.
That's right. And it's only if the fighter loses that they'd be sending those emails. Generally, if they win, it was perfect. It was perfect. Yeah. Couldn't have been better.
Yeah. But you're a human. You're going to make a mistake.
Exactly.
You got to own it. You got to wear it.
Yeah.
So,
what did you think
get better
with the Herb Dean one with Robbie Lawler and Ben Askren? I thought he went out. Like the way his arm dropped.
From where I saw it, I kind of thought it was a good stop.
Yeah, so did I.
Thought it was a good stop.
Even though Robbie Lawler was in it wasn't a headlock. It was
like a bulldog choke. It was just a headlock. It was a schoolyard headlock.
And he was fighting with his hand here, and then it was right up against the cage. His arms just completely dropped for a second, and Herb stepped in, and then Robbie's like, "What are you doing?" I'm fine. Yeah. It's like, "Oh no!" But I do think he went out. Just for a fraction of a second.
But that happens. You do go out, and then at the exact time that the ref stops it, you've taken that next breath, you automatically take that next breath, and you've come good again.
Yes. Yeah.
But you wouldn't have.
That's right. If you didn't stop it.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
The amount of times I've stopped fights, and the guy goes, I didn't tap. I go, you couldn't. You were unconscious. Like, it's hard to tap when you're unconscious.
What? Just stop it for?
Yeah.
You've been asleep for 10 minutes.
Have you had ones that afterwards you're going, oh, yeah, I called that wrong, and it's eaten away at you a little bit?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I had one of those, and I'll tell you who it was. It was Josh Coolabo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was the guest at DFC.
Yeah, there you go.
That interviewed, yeah.
And I had him the night before a DFC event. So I that was the last fight. I'd done that fight, and then I had to sort of block it out, go and come over and do DFC the next one. This is quite some music, so he's fighting before. What's he been in the UFC 4 or 5 years?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so it was quite some time ago, but he dropped a guy with a body shot, a guy named Rafael Berthet. I think he also fought on. If he didn't fight on DFC, he fought on MMA Down Under. So he'd been over and fought. He was a good fighter, but Josh had just caught him with a body shot and dropped him, and he'd ran in and looked like he went to stomp him.
Oh.
Now, if the only legal stop is a standing foot stomp.
Yeah.
So he can't do anything else. But he also grabbed the fence at the same time. So I'm looking down to go, are these legal? Are these not legal? And I didn't miss the hands. And I stopped. Like, the reason the guy was on the ground was he was dropped. The fight was over. But so I wish I had my time again there.
What's it called? The grabbing of the cage?
No, I waved the fight off and called him the winner.
Right.
But I kind of thought maybe that wasn't how it should have been.
Okay. Yeah, but it's one of the toughest jobs in the world.
You've got a second to make that decision. Yeah. I think now this is. I think I'm better at it now, so I think I would handle it a lot better now. And I don't let things beat me up so much anymore. I kind of I've had so many arguments and discussions with corners, coaches, promoters, everyone else that I'm pretty comfortable in sitting here and saying, I can have this debate with you on the rules, and I reckon I'm going to be better at you, better than you at it. I reckon I'm going to have it over you.
Yeah, for sure.
So many times I've sent emails back to somebody who's complained, and I said, at any time you want me to come down to your gym and educate your coaches and your fighters on what we're looking for, or what we're seeing, or how it's going to affect this round by what you're doing, I'm more than happy to come down and do that. No one's ever followed it up.
Of course not. No, that's right.
It's on my time. I was going to prepare to do it for free. I'll drive down to your gym and I'll say, this is what we're looking for. Yeah, if you're saying, hey, no, just do this. No, don't do that, because that's not going to win you the fight.
So you're one of the few people that get this real helicopter view of the sport and get to basically see what everybody's up to. So what's impressing you at the moment about the state of MMA as you look around the country? Who's doing the right things? And
there's some great promoters out there at the moment. There's a couple of new ones that are doing great things. I really like, there's a little show in Melbourne called Bushido Fight Night. It's by a guy named Dennis Kelly. Now, Dennis Kelly used to fight in those CFC shows all those years ago. Lovely guy. Thinks puts fighters first and puts on a great show. I really like that show called Salt.
Yeah.
I think Wayne's doing a fantastic
and
job.
Is that a
Demolition.
big show, or is it?
They're not big shows. They're not huge shows.
So what impresses you about something like Salt, for instance?
Just the way it's set up, the contact they have with officials, the contact they have with their fighters, just little things. You just see little things that you go, I actually care here.
Yeah.
You know, they've got, and Demolition are fantastic at it. There's a show called Demolition. I shouldn't probably be naming shows for I'm not trying to compare.
You're not saying anybody's doing anything bad.
No. But he does a fantastic job.
Demolition's got great marketing. It looks fantastic.
And
great branding.
But he really cares about everybody who's involved in his show. To the kid that's wiping the blood off the floor, to the he'll send a message out and saying, "Hey guys, be here by 5 o'clock. We're going to provide dinner for everyone." And they'll you can go there early.
Isn't it?
You can have some dinner, brush your teeth, and get ready for the show. Just does little things. You go, wow,
it makes a difference.
I've worked on the UFC. I've done probably 20 plus UFCs, and there's quite often you don't get looked after anything like you do on a little local show like that, and you go, that's why I love this sport.
Right. People are doing it right.
Yeah, they actually care about the fighters, which is where we have to go. We have no choice. That's the direction we have to go in. We have to care.
Absolutely.
I did see a kid fight on Hex a few weeks ago who lost, and he fights out of Joe Lopez's gym, Volkanovski's gym, and he was pretty impressive. So I'm interested to watch his next couple of fights. But he lost the fight, and he fought Khan Offley, who's a monster, and had an answer for everything. But this kid was reckless, which I kind of like in MMA.
Yeah,
a bit reckless, but it got him caught in the end. But maturity will sort of get him. But he's got some tricks, and they've got that Volkanovski footwork.
Yes,
all that gym, just good to watch.
Yeah, that's right. It's so interesting to see the evolution of technique and styles and what works. Certain things will take over for a little while, and then a counter will sort of start to be developed, and you see, UFC 1993 was when it started, and you saw the progression. Jiu-jitsu was dominating everything to start with. No one knew what it was, and then the rest.
Plus, you could wear your gi, you could choke people.
Yeah, that's right. Just take the belt off.
Well, what's happening? The biggest shift for me is that even those early shows that we were officiating back in Sydney was you'd have this guy's from Thai boxing, this guy's from
yes.
Whereas now
slap fighting.
Yeah, these kids are just MMA kids.
That's right.
Yeah. They learned all their jiu-jitsu in an MMA gym. They learned all their striking in an MMA gym, and it's different. Boxing for boxing is different than boxing for MMA.
Definitely.
Yeah, you're not thinking about just your head and your body because someone's going to take your legs off you. They're going to shoot on you.
That's right.
So you're watching these kids and they're Googling stuff. I'll have a roll around with a kid. What's that? Oh, I found it on YouTube.
It's a twister or something. Some sort of inverted heel hook or
YouTube Fight Club.
That's right. It's so exciting to have seen that progression. And as you were saying, it was illegal in a lot of states in Australia, and then it was like, because when I had seen the UFC, and it was like, oh, this is amazing, and it's this American sport, and it was only DVDs that you could hire from the shop. It was
VHSs.
And you had to wait months for them to come out after the event, and I was so excited for this sport, and it was like no one else knew what it was. No one, it was like, what is it? And but then seeing like it start to creep and start to find its feet, and it's like, oh, it's starting to get there. And even when New York got sanctioned finally, and it was just those little things that started pushing it. And then they got the Ultimate Fighters happening, and then they were coming to Australia. It's, they're coming to Australia. We got to go. And UFC 110 in Sydney, and everyone who was a UFC fan in the country was there. And as I said, from the very first fight, it was the whole stadium was packed, and everyone's got their own shirt with their favorite fighter, and it's like, it was such an amazing growth to have seen it. And it's interesting now to see that people that are younger that are getting into it, that they don't realize that it was that growth that happened. They sort of are seeing an established organization and everything that is already there and already set up. And even if they want to get into MMA, I'll just look up an MMA club. There was no MMA clubs. There was none of it at all. You'd be lucky to find jiu-jitsu. You'd be lucky to find any kind of grappling apart from, you'd have wrestling, but, they weren't looking to do MMA. And
I think there was a couple of guys rolling around in a shed here in Adelaide many, many, many years ago. But that first MMA show we had guys like Nick Hughes fight on the show. Mm-hmm. And Kane Galing, guys like this who now have their own jiu-jitsu clubs around Melbourne. They're kind of veterans of the sport these days, but they were just prepared to go, let's have a fight.
Yeah, yeah.
None of them were really. Dylan Opitz, I think, fought on the first or second MMA Down Under show.
Yeah, absolutely. We were also saying last week, Rich Franklin, who was the champion in the UFC, and he was training in his shed with his mates. Yeah. That's where it was. That's where it started.
Learning out of books.
That's right. Yeah, and I remember getting who was it? One of the instructors.
He was a maths teacher.
That's right. He was. Yeah, that's right. Masters in education he had, and also masters in beating the crap out of people in the
cage. He was a good fighter.
Yes. Yes, I think Anderson Silva sort of took his soul a little bit.
On a couple of occasions.
He did, yeah. His nose ended up on the other side of his face.
I think it kind of finished him. Did he have one or two fights after that?
Yeah, he did all right. He retired after getting knocked out by Kung Lee.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, but he did knock out Chuck Liddell with a broken arm, more or less. Yeah.
But everyone towards the end knocked out Chuck Liddell. Sadly.
A stiff breeze was knocking out Chuck Liddell.
Sadly, because he was a fantastic fighter too.
But as you're saying, that you like that reckless style, and so does the crowd. And he had, he was so aggressive with his striking, and got into those wars, and eventually
But it's evolved so much now. Like that style of fighting doesn't work anymore.
That's right.
You're going to get tagged.
Yep.
You're going to get caught really early. So
that's right.
Watching it evolve like it has been fantastic. I'm lucky I was there at an infant stage, and I've watched it grow, and hopefully I'm going to watch it grow in the next 20 years, and I'm just going to sit there and drink beers and watch it.
And how do you think it will evolve in the next 20 years?
Hopefully it's not going to go more showbiz. Hopefully it's going to really focus on athletes and great fighters.
So you're not really hopeful after the WWE merger? No.
I'm just waiting for the Undertaker to come out under the cage during a fight with a steel chair.
I mean, I read this morning, hasn't Diaz been offered a fight with Jake Paul now?
Yes.
It's on.
Is it boxing or is it MMA?
It's boxing.
Okay.
And good luck to him for making the money, but it's just, I'm not interested in circus fights. I just like fights. That's why I'm more than happy to watch some kids in a little amateur show just going for it, trying this, working their game. They've been training in the gym for X amount of years. I want to test my skills against someone.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think about those YouTube celebrities that are basically making sports like boxing more popular again in a lot of respects? It is.
Look, they are, and same with footy players who are jumping in and fighting each other. And
Barry
at least
Hall.
people are kind of watching boxing, and so hopefully we're going to have some real quality. We've got quality boxers. What I feel sorry for is that there's a heavyweight kid who's been busting his ass in the gym, but he's got no name. He never played footy or never played rugby league, and he's just not getting on those cards. That's what I feel for those kind of guys. But on the other hand, there's guys like, say, a Paul Gallen who's made millions and millions of dollars out of boxing, and good luck to him. I'm just not a fan of that kind of boxing. Like, I'm just not a fan of the celebrity fights.
Right.
I just like a good, honest fight.
Yeah. Do you have an all-time favourite fighter?
Oh, look, that's a really hard thing to say.
Who's your favourite?
I've got guys that I really admire as fighters, and I like their styles.
And your favourite is?
Like if there was only one.
Can we just narrow it down?
Well, you can have a few people. That's fine.
Yeah.
Guys who I admire as fighters, and I like their style. I really liked. I really like the way Dan Hooker fights.
Oh yeah.
And I think I like the way he's fought because I remember him as a kid and doing his early fights in AFC. First big show in Melbourne, and he became a 2-time champion in the AFC.
Right.
So I loved watching I guess I just loved watching his progress. I refereed Volkanovski in the AFC to his first loss. He fought at welterweight. He fought Corey Nelson. His only loss up until his last fight. It's the only fight he ever lost. Right. So just watching him come through was good. Izzy used to fight in that show in China that we did. So, and then he came out and he had a fight on AFC and a fight on Hex, which I did both of those fights before he went into the UFC. So just watching those guys go through was great. But one guy who I just loved fighting as a fighter was Carlos Condit.
Oh, yes.
He just didn't come – he just came with bad intentions.
That's
like,
right.
I'm in a fight and whatever happens to me happens, but I'm just going to fight you.
Yeah.
I love that mindset.
Yeah. How did you score his Nick Diaz fight?
I'd have to go back and have a look at it again, to be honest with you.
What was his shorts like?
What, did he have enough tattoos?
He always had good shorts and good tattoos and good hair. He always had good hair.
That's right. Well, that's what was interesting because he did have that really aggressive style, and he'd just come off a big knockout of Dong Gung Kim, the stun gun. Carlos Condit, I think, flying kneed him in the face and completely KO'd him. And then he had this fight against Nick Diaz, and everyone's thinking, "Oh, this is going to be amazing," because obviously Nick Diaz is very aggressive, comes at you the entire fight. But Carlos Condit used the stick and move strategy to great effect, and he was able to use his footwork and land a punch and get away. Land a punch, get away. They'd clinch for a bit, he'd get away. You can see Diaz getting very frustrated, walking, like getting annoyed. But I had scored it for Condit 1, 2, and 5. But there was, for years, this has been arguments on the forums that Nick Diaz, so yeah, but I don't know, it just pops up for me. Whenever you say Condit, I'm like, that's right there.
He's just one of those fighters. He almost had George's that time.
Yes, he did. The head kick.
It was so close.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just admired him as I've never met him. I don't know him, but I liked watching him fight. He was one guy that he would pay and go, I want to watch this guy fight. He's entertaining.
Always entertaining.
Yeah, but he's entertaining as a fighter. He's not a smack talker. He's not a circus guy. He's just an entertaining fighter, and that's what I like. I like entertaining fighters.
He was a fighter to the bones. And I remember that one event he had. It was like a press conference or something, and they'd usually dress in a suit. This suit that he was wearing, it looked like it was from the op shop. He didn't care. It wasn't his sort of thing. And then they must have been told, you got to wear a suit. Oh, all right. The suit was hanging off. Here are the ties hanging down.
Yeah, good on him. Good on him. And one guy who I did come to admire, and this is because he took the referee course in Los Angeles, and I got to spend 3 days.
Can I guess? Josh Barnett?
No. And I got to roll with him. And after the course finished, we all got together, myself, Herb, and a few other boys, and we just met at the gym and had a roll. And it's probably 20 minutes of his life he'll never get back rolling against me. It was no good, but I didn't care. I was just going to roll with him. But it was Chris Lieben.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Chris Lieben. Now he was a guy that just wanted to fight.
That's right.
It was crazy.
Yeah, he just wanted to knock anybody out.
He was crazy. But I loved getting on the mat and rolling around with him because I'd known what he'd already done to other people, and I thought, well, he can snap me in half whenever he wants, but I'm gonna try and put some stuff on you here, see what happens.
How did it go for the roll for the session?
Well, as I said, it's 20 minutes of his life. Complete waste of his time.
I met him in Vegas. My honeymoon was in Las Vegas, and there just happened to be a UFC on at the same time in the casino that we were staying in. But he was fighting on that card. That was he fought Akiyama.
Oh yeah,
Sexy Yama. Yeah. And I think he'd won a fight like 2 weeks prior, and then Akiyama's opponent had dropped out, and they gave Chris the call up, said, "Hey, you want to put the pizza and beer down and come back and go again?" He's like, "Sure." So met him at the open workouts and all, and but he ended up winning that fight as well with the triangle in the third round. And it wasn't even fully locked. He had like his toes were hanging on. It wasn't like locked in like this. He was sitting like this, and it was like 3 toes, I think, was the amount of pressure he had. But he got the tap. So
good on him. He's a pretty good ref. He went out and started reffing some local shows and doing some stuff. But I don't know what he's doing now. But I think he went and signed with Bare Knuckle and got involved in that. So I don't know if there's a conflict there or he can still stay involved. I'm not sure. But he was a nice guy, and he wasn't great. He had some learning difficulties at school. He couldn't really write. He couldn't really read, and we took all that into we took it all in and went, well, we know this is Chris Lieben. We know we don't have to do the technique test really with you because we can just Google you. Yes. We know that you know what's going on. But he busted his ass to get through it, and he got approved and went out and started doing some local camo shows, which is the amateurs over there. And we had Frank Trigg.
Oh, Trigg.
Go through it as well.
Yeah.
Frank was good.
Twinkle Toes.
Yeah.
Worst nickname in the UFC.
Well, I think he was one of the first guys to paint his toenails, wasn't he? Well, him and Chuck Liddell used to.
Yes, and Rashad Evans and Keith Jardine. I think he did it for a bit as well. Yeah, and it became a thing. It was very weird. And they used to pinch their nipples before they'd fight. That was also a weird thing.
Keith did that, didn't he? I think what did he go on to do? He ended up making movies or
He's
something.
been in some movies, yeah. I saw him in one the other day. But yeah, he's doing well in the acting world. So it's great to see that. The Dean of Mean, Keith Jardine.
Keith Jardine. He always came to fight too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he knocked out Forrest Griffin. He beat Chuck Liddell.
Rampage?
Yes, yeah. So he had some amazing fights in the UFC. And I think he was the first guy to sort of end Chuck's big streak. It was a decision, and the fight wasn't great, but he did knock Chuck down in one of the rounds, and everyone was booing it.
He's a big guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did a seminar with him in Los Angeles once with Greg Jackson.
Oh, great.
So I just attended. I didn't do it with him. I just turned up and went, I'm going to learn some stuff here.
Nice.
That's going to lead into another stupid thing that I've done during COVID. So this happens during COVID, and I get a call from this woman who's a casting agent. This is talking about the movie stuff. And she says, listen, I was giving you a number. I need some she gave me a description of these guys. We're shooting this film called, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, it's on Channel 9 now, I think, called La Brea. There's a sinkhole opens up in Los Angeles, and these people fall down to it and go to this other world.
Right. Huh.
Yeah, I didn't think you do either, but I know but they spent millions on it. They got millions for this show. And she said, we need some guys to be guards of this tribe that have been down there for 10,000 years. So we need some kind of rough-looking heads. They've got to be a certain size, a certain age. And she said, I thought you might be able to help me. And this is during COVID, and they had permits to film this thing during COVID, this American production. And it was good money.
Yeah.
And so I run around the gym that night before everything's locked up, and I get 10 blokes' heads and I take photos and tell them what it's about. And I send it to all this woman who I've never met. And she says, what about you? I said, I do not tick one box. I'm old, ugly, skinny, nothing.
That's what we're looking for.
She said, just throw it in.
You sound like my type.
Because that'll just be another head. I read the brief of what she wanted, and I didn't tick one box. But you guys may remember Ricky Beechin. He fought on a show over here. He fought Brando.
Okay.
In an MMA fight over here. Right. Big Brando person when he was fighting MMA. And he ended up becoming the eternal heavyweight champ.
Right.
Ricky did. And I don't know Ricky. I've reffed him a few times. I don't know him. But I just went, God, this guy's a perfect fit for this role. So I just tracked him down and said, hey, listen, mate, I got this weird call at the gym. Do you want to take a photo? Can you take a photo of yourself and send me your measurements?
Yeah.
And he did so, and I sent him in. Anyway, the next day, this woman phones back. She sends it back to America. Comes back, she goes, they're really interested in Ricky and you.
Wow. Like, what?
Going, yeah, I don't know about this. Anyway, she said, can you do a screen test? Because of COVID, we couldn't go in and do screen tests, so we had to do it on a phone from home or an iPad from home. And they sent us a heap of questions, and it was the easiest question. Well, you guys all would have got this gig. They just said, what would you do if somebody threatened your family and your home? A stupid question to ask people like us. So I think me and Ricky answered in a similar manner, and they go, they want to hire you. They want to offer your contracts. You guys are going to be the temple guards of this.
There you go.
This show. So we go in, and I haven't really met Ricky at all. So we turn up to this costume fitting day, and we're in rags and bear skins, and we've got bow and arrows, and because he's a big guy, Ricky, with dreadlocks, and he just looked perfect. I'm just an old skinny dude with no hair. But they dressed me up, and they put a scar across my head and under here and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, our job is to do you remember what's that movie with Mel Gibson and they're going away to join the very, very early one, Chariots of Fire? No.
No, not Gallipoli.
Gallipoli.
I was Gallipoli. Yeah.
Gallipoli, the blonde guy, the handsome blonde guy, Mel Gibson. Well, a handsome blonde guy who's an old guy now, still handsome. He was kind of the old man of this tribe, and we were sort of his protector. So we just and they built this ancient village out the back of Geelong in the Yangs. I don't even know if I can find a photo, which you can't see on a podcast, but I will show you just so I can put you in the picture. Anyway, myself and Ricky.
You're going to have to send it over so we can edit it in.
Myself and Ricky turn up to this thing, and we end up in this series that goes on, and we're stabbing people and we're fighting saber-toothed tigers, and it was just the most bizarre thing, and getting paid really well for it. Anyway, it gets enough money to get a second season, and they phone us up and ask us back. So we've just done
fantastic.
2 seasons.
This is now an ongoing
This
gig.
is on now. No, it got cancelled. The third season got the money, but they've moved the location. So, so we're off, and so Ricky cut his hair off. But I do have to find you this photo just so this can all tie in together.
Well, whilst you're looking for the photo, I'm going to ask you some of the big. If I could come up with 5 questions quickly, I'd do a fast 5. Oh, there you go. This is fantastic. You don't have to send that over to us. We'll put that on the screen for everybody so that they can see that. That is cool. That's amazing. Awesome.
Maybe Ricky might not want it, but it was it was a very funny few weeks worth of work. Got me through COVID.
Nice one.
We weren't flying around the world doing fight shows. I was running around
on movie sets for Hollywood productions
in a cow skin and a spear. Yeah. I also they phoned me up. There was a new tribe or something arrived, and who else did I get on? I got another boy from Absolute. I can't think who I'd go. Anyway, I'll think who it was. But there was a bunch of, and they had these. The funniest thing, they had these stunt guys on there that were supposed to coordinate some fight scenes. And which go, that doesn't work. That's not going to work. No, that's not real. That's not work.
I've got a conspiracy theory that maybe the sport of MMA was just invented so you could have a really cool life, and that you may have invented it.
It's been fun for me. That's for sure.
So here's a couple of the serious. This is the serious part of the podcast.
Is there a buzzer?
There is a buzzer.
I'll give you a yes or no. Should there be
No.
Yes or no? Should there be a limit to how many hugs a fighter should have before they enter the cage?
That's a good point.
Should there be a hug limit, or should there be maybe points taken off? The judges should be watching from the time that the hugs begin.
That's a tough one, and the answer is no. I can't give you the yes or no answer on this. That's a tough one because we're in South.
It's a grey area.
Because we're in South Australia,
and they like a hug in South Australia, don't they?
And when those cardiac flex boys walk out, there's about 30 of them following out. They have to hug everyone.
It's a hug train. It's a hug train.
Yeah.
So are you for or against the hug train? Do you feel it's better for the fighter? Or?
I'm happy for them. I actually say it. I say, take off your shirt, hug up your team.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Say goodbye.
They're the instructions.
Yeah.
Say goodbye.
So do they think they have to do it now because you're telling them?
Well, you can do whatever you want, but that's what I'm saying. Off they go away, now you're ours.
And then you come back.
Vash you up.
Yeah.
And away you go.
Go to work, yeah.
Have you thought about vaselining them up and then giving them back to their team.
They all get Vaseline all over their clothes. Israel Adesanya on the weekend, who just fought, and same thing. He hugged everyone on the way to the. I was like, just get in the cage.
So maybe when it gets to UFC level, there should be some kind of hug limit. Maybe. But
I think he hugged the referee even.
Question two.
Question two. Gloves. Gloves or no gloves? Do you think
For MMA?
for MMA?
Well, gloves, initially there was no gloves. So UFC, there was no gloves. They were brought in to stop the hand injuries, not to stop the head injuries.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with a 4-ounce glove because it still means you can play your game. You can still grapple, you can still grab, you can still do what you have to do. So I'm happy with them. If they want to take them off. I mean, this bare knuckle thing I thought initially was going to be a bit of a circus, but it's actually pretty good to
they're
watch.
doing pretty well.
Yeah, and if you do get tagged, you're generally done. It's not like a big boxing glove where you get tagged, you drop down, they stand there and watch you while your brain injury is starting to occur, and they say get up and go again.
Yeah, well, you go
it doesn't
again.
happen. So, yeah, I'll be happy to see where it goes.
What about the new style of glove that they've brought in, or that the UFC hasn't adopted it, but instead of having the fingers that you can move freely, it's sort of curved a little bit to try to prevent the eye pokes from, when they're trying to get distance, they can't actually extend their fingers completely. So John Jones will be screwed.
They can extend their fingers, but there's still a shell over the top there.
Right,
So that's
yes.
what they're trying to do. Yeah, I think they're good.
Yeah.
But and this final question might be the most controversial and leave you
Who's
never
your
to be on a
favourite
UFC card ever again. But slap. What's your feelings on slap?
God.
Slapping in MMA or the slap fest?
No, the
Slap-
slap
the
fighting
slap
thing.
fight.
Because slapping in MMA, I'm fine with.
Yeah,
That's
slap.
Because they can defend themselves.
Stock and
there's
slap.
But that's on you. If you want to mount someone and slap him, that's on you. You can. I mean, a kid asked me that question. So if I mount him, can I slap him? I said, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Can I call him a bitch? That's unsportsmanlike conduct. You just need to slap him. That's what I say to him. This slap, I just don't get it. I don't know how it's. Was it a sport? Was it a hobby?
don't know what
Whose
it
hobby
is.
is it to get slapped in the face?
I can't believe it's a thing, and I'm so disappointed that Dana White jumped on it.
Everything that you learn as a martial artist, if someone's going to hit you, you try to get something between their fist and your face. That's just basic rule number one. And even if you're not good at it, if you go, oh shit, and you don't get hit in the face and it hits your arm, you've had a win.
Yes.
So I kind of like, why is this a thing? Why do you, I mean, generally the guy who goes first wins, doesn't it?
Pretty much. Yeah.
It seems. Well, to me, it seems counterintuitive to have a sport where, and you can see the disappointment in the first slapper if he doesn't knock the other guy out. It's like, I know what's going on.
Now I'm going to get slapped.
And they're literally holding their hands behind their back. It just seems a little bit wrong to me. But
It'd be better maybe if they slapped each other at the same time.
But I'm also conscious that there was a time there people kind of were cringy about MMA in the same way, and so is this a sport that's got potential to evolve, or is it just a flash in the pan that maybe shouldn't have been in the pan to begin with?
But you always had an opportunity to defend yourself in MMA, and MMA came about from different styles. Who's got the best style?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then the style evolved into MMA, and it's still evolving today. I mean, the rules have changed so much since the first lot of rules.
Yeah,
They had to have X amount of rules to get them sanctioned in certain states. Some of them were crazy, grabbing the clavicles. Does anyone have a tap from grabbing a clavicle? Only changed that rule a few years ago.
They need to change that bloody downward elbow one though.
It's-
The 12 to 6 thing.
It is crazy because you can elbow anywhere you want, but you can't do that.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I think the idea behind where that came in was some commissioner or somebody who was writing the rules had seen somebody breaking through blocks of ice with that thing, and they're like, oh well, that's, if they can do that, those pre-cut pieces of wood.
You can break the same things up or
Exactly, it makes no sense. That rule, I'm amazed it's still in there actually. And that John Jones, he's only lost is because of that.
Yeah.
Steve Mazzagatti was the one. Would you have called that?
Well, I'm not here to criticise another ref.
No, that's
but-
fair. Well, if you were in that situation though, would you have called that as a 12 to 6 elbow against Matt Hamill in that situation. Mark Hamill from
Star Wars. Yeah. How would it go if he was a Skywalker?
If he had a lightsaber.
Steve had a few moments, didn't he? Mazzagatti had a few
Oh
moments in
man,
his refereeing career.
he was bad. Actually, somebody who has improved a lot, Dan Mergliotta. I think he has gotten a lot better. He was one of the worst when he started. He made so many mistakes. There were so many things, and every time he would be announced as a referee, I was like, "Oh no!"
I think he was a boxing ref. Did he come from a boxing?
I think so. Yeah, but he poked somebody in the eye in the stare down.
Yeah.
The both fighters called them to the middle. It's like, any questions from you? Yeah, but he has improved a lot. He's doing well. But John McCarthy obviously was incredible. In those first couple of UFCs, he said like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't stop the fight. I couldn't do nothing.
No. Well, you could hit groin shots. You could do whatever.
Yeah.
It was all pretty.
Yeah.
He was in there for decoration.
That's right, pretty much.
Yeah,
he literally couldn't even stop the fight.
I think
in the first
Jason
couple.
Herzog's a really good ref.
He is. Yeah, he is great. Yeah, there's a couple of really good ones. There was Mazzagatti was terrible, and every time that he got any fight, it was like, oh no, this is he was the defining factor in the fight a lot of the times, and it was like this isn't how it should be. The official, as you said, should be if you didn't notice anything the official did, he did a great job.
I like Leon Roberts. I reckon he's a good ref.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really good ones. Who was the Asian guy that used to do this heart symbol? Was it Mario or something?
Yamazaki,
yes. He did well sometimes at the very start, and then he just seemed to get worse and worse. and he let some fights go for ages. The guy was out for like 20 seconds. The other dude's punching the crap out of him, and it's like he's looking. Like, stop the fight, dude.
My concern with all that stuff, and it's a concern in football, and it's raised its head in football, is that at some stage, and this is my concern, is that I'm going to get a phone call from a parent or from a lawyer saying, "Hey, my son can't spell his last name anymore, and you reffed his fight 15 years ago and let it go too long. We're coming after you."
Yeah.
This is my concern, because these CTE issues coming up in football, rugby, soccer, all these sports are a real thing now. They're suing doctors, they're suing clubs, they're suing. So at what point are they going to come after? I mean, I have insurance for that. I'm also appointed by the government because I'm certified to be there. So maybe I don't need to. So you need to go after them. They appointed me. I've got the qualifications to be there.
Yep.
I don't know. There's going to be some finger pointing. So we really need to have a look at what stage do we stop fights. What you would be surprised at the amount of people that in a rules meeting come up to me and go, if I'm getting beaten on me, don't stop it. I want to die in there. Like I want to get out myself. I've heard it 100 times. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but my job is to make sure you're alive. That's right.
You'd rather stop it too soon than too late.
But you're going to cop it. You're going to cop it. So just bear in mind, and I've done it at the highest level where people have said you've stopped it too early.
There's so many people that would look at what you're doing as a role and going, oh, I'd love to do that. Oh, I'd love to get in the cage and be the referee and it'd be amazing. Yeah, we get to do, and the big high profile fights, and you don't see all the other things that come with it.
And generally what happens, and I could pull some up online where I've stopped a fight and someone said that's too early. Like it's just too early. And I go, well, it's too early if you may be watching this 6 seconds of the end of the fight. But if you watch the 3 minutes in the first round where he's had 3 concussions, he's been dropped 3 times, and I'm just went, it's enough. He's kind of not all there. I'm stopping it, not because of that point, but he's had enough. I've seen everything that he's absorbed up until then, and he doesn't need. He's not there anymore. Like he's not reacting like he should. So I'm going to stop this fight. And some people go, well, no, he had his hands up. He was this,
Yeah.
Watch the whole fight.
That's right.
Watch everything that happened up to that point because it changes things. I only ever, and this is he never mentioned my name, but Dana, after a fight in Japan, I reffed. It was a big name guy. He was a co-main event, I think. Gokhan.
Oh yeah.
Saki.
From kickboxing.
World champion. And remember they gave him that fight, and I reffed his debut fight against.
Didn't he get knocked out?
He didn't get knocked out.
Oh, okay. Sorry, there was another kickboxer with a big name came in as a big.
I
didn't interrupt.
No. So anyway, in this fight, I stopped this fight. He fought Henrique, some big Brazilian guy, and he gets dropped and he goes down, and I just went, that's it, it's done. But if you watch the whole round of the first round, he gets dropped 3 times before it gets to that point.
Right.
Like I possibly could have stopped it one
knockdown prior.
One knockdown prior to that. So anyway, I copped it from everywhere. I got death threats from Brazil. I got family threats from Brazil.
Wow.
Yeah, you get some nasty stuff after that because he was the hero of Turkey. I think he was born in Turkey, but he was fighting out of Holland. You know, those Dutch kickboxers.
Ernesto Houston.
Yeah. So I was copping it from everywhere. But Dana thankfully came out and said, whoever thought that was a bad stoppage, please don't ever apply to me to be a referee. And I kind of went, is that a pat on the back or what's going on here? He didn't actually mention my name or say anything, but he tweeted it. And I went, I think he's patting me on the back.
That's high praise. Probably
Very rare,
the highest praise you can get from Dana with refereeing. Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that referees should be in MMA should be offered the same protection as perhaps umpires are in AFL, for instance, where they really are beyond reproach, apart from maybe in the sphere of the media, but those actually involved in the sport, the players and the coaches, aren't really afforded the opportunity to criticise the officials in any real way?
Look, it's a funny one, and I get emotions are big in the sport. So at that point in time, I've had coaches yell at me or a fighter, and I just go, he's emotional, I'm going to give him his moment. And generally, most people will come and apologise. We'll go, yeah, I've got to think about it, like I was out of line. I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have said that, or I've looked at the vision and you were right. You got it right. So I kind of don't mind it too much. I've been around a long time, so I've got a pretty thick skin, and as you know, I'm pretty happy to stand and have my argument or my debate with any of the coaches or any of the fighters.
But should you need to?
No, you shouldn't have to. But I even say to rules meeting, if anyone has any issues with a judging or a referee's decision, feel free to come and speak to us at the end of the night, and we'll do everything we can to answer your question, because I want the sport to get better. I want them to understand why that happened that way. Yeah. If you're going to threaten me and you want to kill me, that's a different story. But if you're unhappy about a decision, I get it.
Yeah.
And the only way we're going to get better at this is by educating these people. You'd be surprised. In fact, here, it wasn't that long ago, I was at a Diamondback, one of the amateur shows at Golden Grove.
Last year?
Yeah.
Yep.
Last year, the one before was a couple, but Alex was here. Volkanovski was here with a teammate. I don't know if you remember the one.
That might have been the one 2 years ago. Yeah.
And I go through this whole rules meeting, and he comes up to me and he goes, yeah, I can't remember which one it was. He goes, you know, I never knew that. You've just cleared that up. I actually had no idea. This guy's been the world champion for the last 5 years. And he didn't know that was actually a rule.
Yeah.
No worries, Alex. Happy to help.
Yeah, I've seen some backstage footage with referees going through, just the pre-fight with fighters, and it is so important, because just to clear up, if there's any questions you've got, this is basically my rundown as to how things are going to go. If you get hurt, and you look like you're in trouble, that's the end. You got to show me something really quick, your intelligent defense, or this is done. You can see that clarification is there. So after the fact, they can't really go back and go, oh, I didn't even know you.
That's why you have to do a rules meeting. That's why in pros I'll always go and see them individually and give them my commands.
Yep.
And that way, if there is an issue, I'll go, but we spoke about that, and I asked you, did you have any questions? And you said no. So you broke one of the rules. That's why the fight was stopped. So that's why we have to do that sort of stuff. I mean, the last thing I do before every fight, now, it's not all, you don't do it in the UFC, but you'll do it in main events, is when you bring them together. Gentlemen, we've been through the rules. You need to protect yourselves at all time and obey my commands at all time. That's the last thing I say. And I'll say, touch gloves if you want. Let's have a good, clean fight.
Yeah, I used to heard it where they'd say, any questions? I don't think
it's not
anyone's
time to
ever.
ask questions.
I don't think anyone's ever asked a question.
That's why I don't say that. I don't say that. I say we've been through the rules. They know we've been through the rules.
That's right. It is. Gentlemen, we've been through the rules out the back. Let's have a good, clean fight.
It's more a declaration so everybody else understands.
That's right.
But it's more about, you need to obey my instructions at all. That's what you have. You need to protect yourself at all time and obey my instructions. And that's where TKOs come into it. So someone's on a flurry and they're belting away at you, and this guy's going, I want to die on my side, I want to die on my side. Well, and I've asked you to, and you'll hear me, I scream it out louder than any ref you've ever heard. I'll say, fight back, fight back. And the reason I do that is that, for one, you're not intelligent in defending yourself, so I've got a right to stop the fight. And two, I've asked you to, and you haven't, so you've disobeyed my instructions. So I have no choice. I have to stop the fight.
Right.
There's two reasons I have to stop the fight there.
So if you're not obeying the instructions or you're refusing to, so you're either unable to or you're refusing to, and either way, that
stops the fight. Yeah.
It does help in those situations being loud and direct, because the audience hears that as well, and it's like, okay, well, he's right on the edge here, like he's got to do something, and there isn't that question mark. It's like the referee said it like 6 times. You need to fight back.
I'm not interested in what the crowd has to hear or say, or the commentators really, for that matter. But I'm interested. I say it loud enough so the fighter hears it, and the corners and any other official around the table. Because if it goes any further, did you hear me? What did I say?
Yeah.
Don't grab the fence. How many times did I ask him not to grab the fence? 3 times. That's why I deducted a point at the end of the round.
Exactly.
So you've just got to let them know that, and they know all these rules before they go in there. But you're breaking the rules,
That's right.
And it happens often. It happens all the time, and so you will give people some leniency. Don't grab the fence. If you grab the fence again, I'm taking and I'll say it loud enough. Say, end of the round, I'll take a point.
Yeah. Are they allowed to grab with the feet or not?
No, you're not allowed to insert your fingers or toes at all. You're only allowed to push off.
Yeah.
Anything that goes to your advantage is illegal.
Did you ever see that underground fight of Rich Franklin's, and his opponent's foot got stuck between the canvas and the cage? Yes, it was completely stuck.
I don't know what you do in that situation. I have been in a cage where the lights have gone out in fight. Yeah.
Right.
So I've just stop.
Yeah.
So we're just off.
Right. Oh God. And then obviously when they fixed it up, it was like, okay, where were you? And you were there. All right. Yeah. Start again. Ready?
That's a hard thing too to assess where to put people. You've got to know your positions. This is why I spoke about in the referee course and the judging course. You have to get on the mat. You have to have some experience. You've got to know how to reset someone in the right. You can't take an advantage of someone.
That's right. Yeah, that's what used to happen in those early days in the UFC, is that there would be a foul or there would be something, and somebody would be in an advantageous position. Like they'd have top position and they're working, and I don't know, whatever happened. Let's say that the guy at the bottom lost his mouth guard or something, and even those sort of things. And they'd be like, okay, stand up, and it's like, well, you just took the guy worked 10 minutes to get that, Billy.
I very rarely stop for a mouthpiece unless there's a lull in the action. I won't stop.
Right.
If your mouth guard comes out, you're going to fight. Yeah. Protect yourself. Yeah. But I'm not taking the advantage of this guy because he knocked your mouth guard out and he's wailing on you. I'm not going to tell him to stop for you to put your mouth guard in.
Do you think there'll be that much more by way of evolution in the rule set?
Yeah, for sure.
You think that it'll get so we're not there yet?
No, I don't think we're there yet, and we're not there yet because different organisations have different sets of rules. Look at ONE FC's rules. Look at PFL have some different rules. So,
who's got it most right at the moment? Do you feel out of the big promotions?
I used to hate soccer kicks in the head. I thought that was anyone could. You didn't have to go to a gym to learn that. You could do that in a pub.
It's brutal, isn't it? Yeah.
It's brutal, but we're in a fight. And we spoke earlier about if someone's going to hit you or kick you and they do something to your head, you need to protect yourself. So why should you be able to dive in the ground and go, let's play jiu-jitsu? No, I'm going to kick in the head. I'm going to knee in the head. I'm going to punch in the
Yeah.
So I'm kind of coming around to the fact that
soccer kicks are good.
Well, I'm not saying they're good.
They're fantastic.
But I'm saying that's just another part of martial arts you're going to have to – it's another part of your game and you have to work to defend. Because do you remember a few years ago the UFC changed to you had to have 2 hands on the ground.
Yes.
Which I –
Three points of contact, was it?
Well, no. It's never ever been 3 points of contact.
Was it you're grounded to be a grounded fighter, to not get hit?
Yeah, but the words was never 3 points grounded.
Right, okay.
You sound like a fighter who I haven't educated.
Sorry.
So it's anything other than the
you got to do the course, Matt.
Anything other than the soles of your feet makes you grounded. So if I can do a one-handed handstand, I'm grounded.
Right.
Yeah. There's no feet on the ground. There's no knees on the ground, but I'm a grounded fighter.
Right.
Anything other than the soles of your feet makes you grounded. But at the UFC for a while, they changed the rule where you needed to have 2 hands on the ground, which made no sense to me because if I'm in this position here, I want to be doing this.
Yeah.
So to not get hit in the head, you want me to put my hands down? Like never got that sort of stuff.
I think it was that there were so many people that were gaming that rule, and they would have their one hand down and the other hand protecting, like against the cage, but then they had a couple of fights where there was a disqualification because the guy's hand like sort of bumped up just a millimeter as the guy landed a knee to the head, and it was like, oh, we had to go back, and they've watched it and they're going, oh, actually, yeah, his hand moved up an inch when you land, so that's you're actually DQ'd. So yeah, I think
it's tough as a ref to call that. Really, really tough.
Absolutely.
And, you know, John Jones was famous for he'd get down low and he'd just come in and he'd play this game until he would pass your guard or do what he was going to do.
Yeah.
But now they kind of say, if you're going to play that game.
Yeah, too bad. Yeah. I remember John McCarthy saying that. Yeah, if you're going to come out and do that, it's on you if you get head kicked.
Yeah, because technically you are grounded.
Right.
You're not. You are.
Yes.
If you want to play that game, you know.
Yeah, that's
make
right.
a decision. So you can't clean that up completely, though.
No.
I don't know how you clean that up completely.
Well, I guess you're either going to go two ways, and one is, you know, you're going to have what the UFC has currently, where they're trying to find a balance with the two-handed, or you're going to say soccer kicks are allowed.
Yeah.
You know, so
Which means pretty well protect yourself at all times.
that's right.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that's
Soccer
going
kicks are good. I think we're back. There's a circular discussion, isn't it?
There was an underground fight where the guy was doing that. He came out and he was playing that game, and he was sort of hopping up and down, like hands are on, hands on.
Yeah, and I saw the guy just
He head
ran.
kicked him and knocked him out. I think he ended up getting disqualified, but the other guy's like,
Yeah.
"You're going to be an idiot. I'm going to kick you in the head."
Justice was served.
It's like, yeah, I lost.
Yeah.
You got fucking head kicked.
I don't know how we clean up that sort of stuff, but it's evolving. There's new little things are happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Guys are learning counters to counters to counters. So it's an ever evolving sport, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's incredible. It's amazing.
It seems to be of all the sports, it's the most malleable because it seems like and the rule set seems to chase wherever the trends are going as well. So you've got this kind of constant evolution, constant change, and whereas all the other sports have pretty much they've landed on their static rule set now, and there's not going to be that change
Or are going backwards.
Yeah,
I don't know. You don't watch AFL football, but one of my jobs there is to coach tackling, and I'm having a hard time trying to find out what the perfect tackle is these days.
Yeah.
Really, really hard. And they're saying the head, is sacred. You cannot hit the head, but I don't think anyone goes out to hit the head. They go out there to land a tackle, and if your head hits the ground, well, that's in MMA, that's called incidental.
Yes.
That's just incidental to the action. I didn't try to get your head to the ground. I went to tackle you as hard as I could. I did have I had a guy who was on a show in Melbourne who had set up a triangle. So he was hanging onto a triangle, and he picks the guy up like this, and he smashes him to the ground, and the guy gets knocked out.
Right.
And they put a complaint in, and it went to the board. And the board don't really know a lot about that sort of stuff, but I had to just talk them through it, the fact that it was at any time there, while you're hanging onto that armbar, you can just let go and stand up. There's no armbar anymore.
Right.
It's finished. You're standing up.
Yeah.
You can punch him and kick him. But you chose to hang on. So the guy comes down, and as he goes down, he claimed that the guy's head hit him in the chin. That's what knocked him out. So who's to say that knocked him out, or his head smacking the ground knocked him out, or if he had to just let go, change the situation. So
that's right. What was that Rampage Arona thing?
Yeah. But I mean, this is what we talk about. Refs and judge have to know this sort of stuff. Otherwise, we've got the wrong people overseeing our sport. That's not going to progress our sport.
Exactly right. We will have to wrap it up. I've got to get off to.
Oh, we might have to.
We have been nattering on for a while.
Just
it's a good subject to natter on.
I could talk to you forever. I was so excited. I literally have to go to work. I do night shift.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you in, Greg, and just great to hear the stories and truly a legend of the sport. For somebody who hasn't had to stand in there and fight his way to legendary status, I think
I learned very early that wasn't my path.
That wasn't the path, and you might never have ended up in the movies if you did. So, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Klenjans, he's been with us today, and will you be back in Adelaide for DFC 17, 2nd of July?
That is the plan. For
Wonderful.
Sure.
So you can see this man in the cage, Adelaide Oval, DFC 17. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Klenjans.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And we'll see you guys next time.